Okay, I will call the meeting of the Charter Commission to order. It says precisely at 7 o'clock, so I tried to say it out loud while it still says 7 o'clock there. So we'll start with a roll call of the commission members.
I'll call roll. Rod Axtell, are you here?
Here.
Present. Ronald Barnes called in as an excused absence. Nicole Kohler.
Here.
Here. Hussein Dahir. Here. John Eagle.
Here.
Here. Kathy Gustafson.
Here.
Here. Cynthia Hunt.
Here.
Here. Ronald Lindell. Not here. Jamil Masruje.
Here.
Here. Jeannie McGovern.
Here.
Here. Emily Melby is also with excused absence today. Langalafa Oriho. Not here yet. Steve Peterson.
Here.
Here. John Stanley.
Here.
Here. Mark Thorson.
Here.
Here.
Okay, welcome everybody. So I think at this time, what I'd like to do is, since we have, I believe, 4 new commissioners tonight, which is the bigger number that we've had in a while, that we'll go around the room and do a little bit of introductions. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in this direction. So I'm preparing you for the idea that we have to introduce yourself. Okay, but I'm going to do it first. My name is Steve Peterson. I've been the chair now for a year, I think. A year or 2 years? 2 years now. This is my second year being the chair.
Really?
Apparently so. It's been Mark of the years now since.
Probably been that.
Kind of my background in the city is that I was on the planning commission from 1996 until 2000. I was on the city council from 2000 to 2015. I've been on the charter commission. I think I started in roughly 2015 on that, and I'm also on the board of the Port Authority. Did not speak up quickly enough and got appointed to the chair as a result of that. So Jamil, you're next.
Jamil Masruje, this is my first appointment to a commission. I was appointed to the Charter Commission, I think in December, November, probably before then, this past year. Also a new resident of Bloomington, a relatively new resident of Bloomington.
Jeannie McGovern, this is my first time as Charter Commission. And I've been in Bloomington for, gosh, I lost count, 2007. Love the city. And I am a paralegal / contracts manager. So I got about 20 years under my belt with that.
Mark Thorson, been a resident of Bloomington for a long time, 35 plus years, I think. Been involved in commissions and city government since my late 20s, so that's a long time ago. That's the planning commission, housing and redevelopment authority, charter commission, so forth. So always happy to be here.
Hussein Tahir. This is my second commission, also sitting at the Human Rights Commission. This is my second year in Bloomington since I moved here. That's me. Thank you.
I'm Nicole Kohler. I also go by Nikki. Been a Bloomington resident for 9 years and a few years on the commission. I love governing documents and I found my people.
John Eagle, I've been a Bloomington resident for over 50 years. My wife's third generation Bloomington person. It's the first time I've been on a commission of any kind in the city of Bloomington. First meeting.
I'm Rod Axtell. I've been on a charter commission, I think, going back to 2012. I've been a resident of Bloomington since 1985. I'm a CPA. I've got a practice up on the France and Old Chakopee, and I had the good pleasure of serving on the council with Steve from 2006 to 2010, and I've done some things with Cynthia through the Chamber of Commerce and been active in the community.
Cynthia Hunt, been a resident for 40 some years. Planning Commission, chaired the Planning Commission, had the opportunity to work with Mark on there, and then Steve came on shortly as I was leaving. And then Port Authority for 15 years, maybe 14, it's gone quickly. And Charter Commission for even longer.
I'm Kathy Gustafson. This is my second term as on the Charter Commission. I've been a resident of Bloomington for about 25 years. That's a while. And in my other life, I'm a nonprofit consultant.
John Stanley, first moved to Bloomington in 65. Lincoln graduate. My college graduates said, see you later, and left Bloomington for a while. And then eventually ended up back here in 2009. We bought the house I grew up in for my folks so they could get on their way. And I just started a second, I'm retired investment advisor, and I'm just starting my second term on the Charter Commission.
I'm Melissa. I am the city attorney. I've been at the city, it'll be 8 years in August, and I've been with the Charter Commission in this capacity as a charter attorney this same amount of time. And I have, prior to being at the city of Bloomington, I was in private practice and represented cities and charter commissions and HRAs and EDAs around Minnesota.
My name is Adrian. I am the recording secretary for the Charter Commission. I'm also the legal administrative assistant for the city attorney's office. I was born and grew up in Bloomington until I left for college and got married. And I have been working for the city of Bloomington for up on 3 years now.
Well, thanks. Well, I just want to say welcome to the new folks on the commission. I think this is kind of an interesting and unique commission. I met with a couple people. I think Hussein, I don't think I've met with you. John and Jeannie I talked to. And in particular, we're not going to kind of dive into it tonight in big detail, but we've got this project going on where we're going through this charter from kind of end to end. And I think it's excellent for the new people because we really have a deep dive into exactly what the charter is about as part of that project that we have going on. So with that, I think the next step would be approval of minutes. And so there's three. Each one requires a separate motion, and it would be appropriate for someone who was at each of the meetings to make the motion. So we'll take up the November 2nd, 2023 special meeting minutes first. Do I hear a motion regarding those minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
By Cynthia and second by Jamil to approve the minutes for November 2nd. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Next up would be the January 18th minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Moved.
That's been moved by John Stanley.
Second.
Second by Mark Thorson. Any discussion on the January 18th, 2024? Hearing none, we'll have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Next up is the March 7th, 2024 special meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion in regard to those minutes?
So moved.
That's been moved by Cynthia Hunt. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Nikki Kohler.
Sorry, was that Cynthia Hunt or Kathy Gustafson?
Cynthia, I think it was Cynthia, was it?
Cynthia?
Okay, yep. Any discussion on that third set of minutes? Hearing nothing, we'll come to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. So next up would be unfinished business, but we don't have any of that for tonight. So we'll move on to item number 5, which is the review of the Charter Commission's rules of procedure.
Here, can everyone hear me back there? All right. So again, I'm Melissa. I'm working in the capacity as the Charter Commission attorney. As a part of our periodic review of the charter, this past February, March, April, was it? First quarter, we'll call it. We looked at chapters 1, 2, and 3 of the city charter, and we started working on the rules of procedure. And it was so exciting that the commission asked me to finish it up, make a recommendation. And so I did that. In your charter, or excuse me, in your packet is a proposed set of rules of procedure for your consideration. The original existing rules are in there right now at the beginning. And you'll see that they were last adopted, I believe it was in 1997. 1997. And, excuse me, this is the clean copy, my bad. This is the clean copy with the changes incorporated. And then after that, you'll see the red line version comparing the 1997 version with the edits that I'm suggesting. And I will say at a very high level, the edits reflect an effort to do a couple of things. One, remove gender. So in some cases it said he or his, and so I removed that and replaced it with member or its or, you know, gender neutral terms. We also edited it so that it is more compliant with state law. I shouldn't say compliant, consistent with state law. We also just did a general cleanup for things that were no longer accurate. So for example, in 1B, commission meeting room is listed as where we meet. We changed that to Civic Plaza. I think the commission meeting room might have been at Old City Hall. And then we also did some updating to reflect the sort of technology, I'll say in general. So for example, it required mailing and we wanted to make it clear that that could be emailed. And then we also edited it to reflect that there's 3 different types of meetings: regular, special, and emergency under the open meeting law, and cleaning that up. You know, in years past, we never really had emergency meetings, but we have in more recent times. And so I wanted to make sure that our rules address that. And then the other sort of large edit that I made, consistent with the discussion that we had, was related to decorum. And this is language taken out of the rules of the procedure for the city council. There was a lot of discussion about decorum in civil discourse, in sort of in the world, but also at public meetings. And what you'll see in the language here is this is intended to roughly match what's in city council rules. I didn't go into the level of detail that is in the city council rules about being removed from meetings and the procedures related to that. I certainly can put that in there if that would be of interest to you. But what I left it at right now is essentially that we are going to be respectful of diverse opinions. We're not going to tolerate personal attacks. We are going to all participate in assisting the presiding officer in maintaining order. So the law in this area of sort of decorum and public discourse, it allows for great diversity of opinions that can be presented. But what it doesn't allow is disruptions that prevent the body from taking action and doing its business. So the law allows for sort of the accomplishing of what needs to happen. As you all know that have been on the commission, we have oftentimes very specific deadlines for when things need to happen. And if we come into a situation like that, there's a process for making sure that that's accomplished. But essentially, at a very high level, I added information in here about decorum and sort of civil discourse. So I'm happy to go into a much more detailed version of every single edit if that would be of interest, but I know you all were provided the packet 10 days in advance, as is required by the rules of procedure. So we have had a chance to share it with you and provide the red line, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So members of the commission, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through page by page, and I'm just going to call each page, and I'm going to give 30 seconds for you to glance over the changes on the page. Then if you have a question or a comment about that, just kind of wave and we'll start speaking. If someone has a question or a comment on things, we'll just move on from there. So if everybody would turn to page, which is the page that at the top it says draft for 22-24. And I'll give you 30 seconds to look at it and see if you got any questions. I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand, so, John.
I'm wondering why the change from 10 days to 5 business days. See,
That's a really good question. Melissa?
So chair members, this has to do with calling special meetings. And we talked about what the open meeting law requires, which is 3 days. And we talked about the fact that our particular rules require 10 days. In that 10 days was probably made sense back when we were using mail, US mail. And we thought it was reasonable in our discussion at the last commission meeting to tighten that up to 5 business days, given that we now use email and we have ways of communicating with people right away, using e-subscribe to let them know, and Everbridge, I think.
Yep.
To let them know right away that there's information for them to look at. And cell phones and texting and all of that. So the group felt that it was reasonable enough to shorten that to 5 business days. Now, of course, 5 business days, if someone starts it on a Wednesday, wouldn't be until the following week. You'd have the weekend. So
And the 10 days in there, that was a was that a
10 calendar days.
day number? So. Okay. Does that answer your question?
has there been reasons in the past where you would have had it have the 5 days that would have helped instead of the 10 or what?
Chair and members, there were some times in the past where, not last year, but I believe maybe the year before or in the year before that, where the body needed to, the Charter Commission needed to take action within a very specific amount of time in order to respond to petitions that were received to amend the charter. And those 10 days, 10 calendar days, made it pretty tricky. I mean, we were able to pull it off, but the commission needed to come together and we didn't have very many days for them to choose from. And so with that kind of obligation in the law, in state law, and trying to manage all of those different timelines, we felt that 5 business days was a reasonable compromise to get people awareness, but also provide a little bit more flexibility in trying to schedule those meetings.
Thank you.
That's, yeah. I mean, we have a matrix when that comes out, all the deadlines.
Any other questions on this first page? Not seeing anybody. Let's go on to page 24.
And I will say that 5 business days is repeated throughout the documents. You'll see it in some other places as well.
Towards the top, the full sentence eliminated. If there is a contest for any office, election shall be by secret ballot. I don't recall why we eliminated that.
Chair and members, I don't believe there's any authority for a secret ballot, which is why I removed it.
Okay.
The secret is the problem.
And so we just have, we just vote.
We just vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I may, a second question. Just below that, in the next section, very last sentence of that first paragraph is where it says copies of the agenda shall be sent to the local news media. I recall the rather extensive conversation we had about official this, that, and media and how we disseminate, so forth. But did we ever come up with, I do not recall what the substitute for this was.
Chair and members, we discussed that e-subscribe, which will be appearing. I have it on good authority in a very future episode or issue of the briefing per your suggestion. It's a side and the column on the side. And in my experience, the media signs up for those alerts. And so every time a packet is released, they get notice of that. And I believe that to be true because we get calls after the packets are published.
Now, this has been in the news recently in light of small communities losing their official newspaper.
Yeah.
Who knows where we're gonna end up? Fourth largest city that we are, fourth or fifth now, right? Fourth still. But I don't know that we have a particularly robust local newspaper. Maybe more my opinion than anything, but it just always seems like we're kind of just barely there. And so if we were to lose that, but now this is going to eliminate the need for an official newspaper.
Chair members, it doesn't eliminate the need for it. If the, say, for example, Sun Current stopped publishing a newspaper, I would then interpret the local news media to be a newspaper of general circulation in Bloomington, which would probably be the Star Tribune.
Thank you.
This only eliminates the need to send them a copy.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, that's it on page 24, page 25.
And I will offer that I didn't dramatically order the business, reorder the business. I just tried to move 9 up to 3, and then the formatting of this 1897 vintage document resulted in this, and I couldn't fix it. But I'm sure Adrian can work his magic and tighten that up. There's nothing, I'm not trying to be special in that area there. I just couldn't fix it.
Anything on this page?
It says like 8 members of the commission constitute quorum or a quorum. Does that applies to, let's say, for example, if 8 of us wait outside the whole day or someone for a cup of coffee or something, does that mean like anytime we have 8 members meeting anywhere, that does it constitute a quorum?
Chair and members, what you're asking about is the open meeting law and the requirements of that. In order for there to be a violation of the open meeting law, there needs to be a meeting. You need to be discussing official business and or receiving information, discussing information that you have authority to take action on. So if 8 of you got together and talked about the city charter and about amending the city charter outside of an actual meeting, that would be a violation of the open meeting law. But if you all happen to show up at the same ribbon cutting, that would arguably not be a violation of the open meeting law. I will say that when we at the city, and Adrian's familiar with this practice, when we suspect that there's going to be a quorum of any of our commissions invited or attending an event, we put out a what we call a quorum notice. We post that, and it says a quorum of the Charter Commission or Park and Rec Commission or whatever may be present at the ribbon cutting for wherever, in order, out of an abundance of caution, but also so that everybody is made aware of that possibility because they were all invited. So that's our effort to balance those requirements.
Go ahead, yeah.
Second question, maybe it's slightly out of taking, but chair to page 24.
Oh, if you want to go back.
Talking about, because.
Which section are you talking about? You could just point out the specific thing you want to talk about and then
Okay, that's section 5, call to order.
Yeah.
So it says like, in case the chair is not around, vice chair is taking place. If the vice chair is not there, the recording secretary is taking place, and we have elect a temporary chair.
Mhm.
So I would just like to know, how is that election of a temporary? Is it by a vote or?
Would be by a vote. So it'd be basically, practically speaking, what would happen is either someone would volunteer or someone would say, I think you should be it, and make a motion, and we would vote, and then that person would be either be the chair wanting to be it or being stuck with being the chair. But there'd be a motion and a vote. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on page 25? Not seeing any hands waving. Page 26. And not a lot of changes here, so I'll just look up if there's anybody who wants to. Going once, going twice. On to page 27. There's more here, so I'll wait a little while longer before I call out. John?
Why was the address taken out of so many addresses?
Chair and members, there has been some case law that was not recently, but that has been published. And also we have heard from some residents who have testified and were concerned about providing their address in an open forum because of concerns for people knowing where they lived and potentially making them uncomfortable in their home. And so we have removed that. The compromise, that position that we have sort of come to at the city council level, is that the person will oftentimes say they live in the neighborhood or they live on the block that is being discussed, or something that doesn't disclose their actual address. Another thing that we've seen happen or been told has happened is harvesting people's addresses from the public record and then either sending them mail or adding them to mailing lists that they either think they might want to be on or definitely don't want to be on.
Other questions?
So
Go ahead, John.
someone came before the commission to make a statement of some kind, and they said they were from the neighborhood. How would we know they were from the neighborhood? There's no way to check on that, or we don't care about it.
So chair members, what happens at the city council is they just ask. They'll say, what is your familiarity with this property, or how did you come to have this information? And in my experience, it almost always comes out in the testimony based on what they're saying or their concerns. And sometimes it doesn't matter. Like someone's proximity doesn't matter. We also, and I know this is the Charter Commission, not the City Council, but we discussed this at length at the City Council, which is why I'm adding this. At the City Council, there used to be a sort of you would get priority in testifying if you were a resident or a taxpayer. And we ultimately decided to remove that from the record because it's very hard to verify that on the spot. And then we learned sort of firsthand that you don't necessarily have to be a resident or a taxpayer to have an interest. And this became very evident on the landfill discussions that were happening across the river in another city. And that was used as an example to say, well, Bloomington isn't a resident or a taxpayer, yet we have a very big interest in whether this landfill goes in. So we wouldn't want to sort of prevent somebody from testifying. because of that, you know, if the roles were reversed.
Okay, any other questions about page 27?
Would it be,
I'll call on you, John. Go ahead. Yep.
would it be okay to ask somebody if they were a resident then?
Chair and members, yeah, that's definitely been what's happened. Yep. And then I'll just offer, because we have some new folks here that may not be as familiar with why the comments have to go through the chair. And it is because of the recording. So if people can only hear the recording in the future, we need to know who's talking. So that's why I'll always say chair and members before I start speaking. And that's why the chair will call on somebody to start speaking because of the recording. So it's not trying to be fancy or complicated. It's just so that we have a good recording in the future so that we know who's talking.
Yeah. So when I say John, he's going to be listening to that later and he hears me say that. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep. Anything else? Okay, that's it on 7, moving on to 28. Nikki.
We're on 28, you said, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I really, really like this content. I appreciate you drafting this up in particular for decorum. For the first and second sentences in there, I'm wondering if maybe there's some terms in there that maybe might need further definition or might be open to interpretation when reading later. The second sentence also makes me think that there's like a cause and effect that might need further elaboration, but it kind of seems like the paragraph below encapsulates kind of what those sentences were bringing forward. So I wonder if maybe we even need the first 2 sentences.
Chair and members, Commissioner Kohler, do you mean the existing text that starts with, while the commission is in session on the bottom of page 27?
Oh, sorry, for the new revisions, sorry.
So you,
The starting with commission members must be respectful.
Again, chair members, I copied this over from the city council because we had spent a great deal of time and research on that. If this body would like to remove those sentences, I have no objection to that. I just wanted, I thought some consistency might be helpful.
Other comments? I do, I'll speak on this one. I do think that being specific about the relations between us and the commission and kind of what the expectation on that is a valuable thing. And in particular, I think the kind of personal attacks language is an important thing to have on the in that particular document. I think it's a useful thing to have just to make that clear. So, other comments or questions? So Nikki, are you okay with leaving that in there, or do you want to push more on taking it out? What would you like to do?
No, yeah, I was not leaning one way towards the other, just opening up, seeing how anybody felt about needing further definitions or whatever. I definitely appreciate the consistency with the city council verbiage too, though, so.
Rod.
Happy to leave it in.
Okay. Rod.
Mr. Chair, and I'm assuming that other commissions have got similar language in terms of the decorum. It kind of follows the model with the city council, is that correct?
So chair and members, we are editing the rules of procedure as the commissions have sort of the capacity to take that on. As you all are witnessing, it's some pretty exciting stuff. And sometimes they have really a lot of meaty agendas that they need to get through. But when we are working with the commission and there's the interest and capacity in addressing it, we are using the city council rules of procedure as sort of the template for that. Now, I will say that I just edited some rules of procedure for our commission a couple of months ago, and the city councils is really very formal. And that isn't always the best approach for a commission that isn't accustomed to such a formal way of doing business. And so we have worked to make it a little less formal and approachable for folks that have maybe never been on a commission before. But we have carried over language akin to this so that we have some consistency. But we haven't gone all the way to, sort of the very specific stuff that's in the city council rules. You all do have some of that here, but not as much. I mean, the rules of procedure for the city council, I think, are 14 pages or something.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, members. I kind of do have more of a curious question following Nicole's question about the definition of personal text. Is there a broader definition within the city council's procedures that defines what a personal attack might be? For example, those rules of decorum, do they say you can't say X to another member? And the reason I'm asking is if it is helpful, would it benefit our rules and procedures to cross-reference, say, for example, for more definition, another definition section from, the city council, or is it just worth having some kind of additional elaboration on what we necessarily mean? I don't expect anyone in our commission to actually attack another individual personally, but just for the purposes of clarity.
So without more on that, I'll vamp here a little bit to let Melissa go looking there, is that I think the line gets crossed when you stop talking about the action and you start saying you. And you start addressing someone on the commission. And that's one way that where I see the line switches from you're talking about the thing that the commission's talking about to where it starts to get personal in that situation. And so it's, if I was the chair and things were veering in that direction where it was kind of a heated conversation and it veered into the you kind of thing, that's where I would try to pull it back at that point. That's one example.
Chair members, I agree that order, that need for staying on topic is really where the law is at with regard to participation. One thing that came up at the city council discussion was that they wanted the public and the council to be sort of subject to the same rules of decorum and to model as city council members with the expectation that they hope to see it in the public discourse. Now, I will add the council has a lengthy section on rules of debate. It has a code of conduct. It has rules of decorum. It has 10 sections under code of conduct. It has a censure policy, has a rules committee. We have enforcement of decorum, which talks about sort of the need to move out of the room where you're meeting in order to preserve public safety. It goes quite a bit further. And I contemplated putting all of that in, but I remain optimistic that it won't be needed. And I'm hopeful that we can manage our work with what we have here, although obviously we can bump it up if we need to. Nationally, it is a concern in some places, but I thought that the rules that I added to here were sort of the baseline and fall back on that defensible line in case law about staying on topic and keeping things moving so that you can accomplish the business that you need to accomplish. So you'll also see in here, there's a reference to having a single subject and some other sort of order elements to it that keep things focused.
Mr. Chair, members, I'm wondering if, and that's really insightful, I'm wondering if it would be beneficial at all to just reference, like, this is how it's done, for example, in the city, and the rules for the if necessary, for example, like.
Mayor, sorry, I have my head in that. Chair members, I wonder if under matters not specifically covered, we referenced Robert's rules, which I know you all have seen. This is the old book. It's like 692 pages. But we could reference where these rules are silent, we could reference these council rules on some of these other topics. But I wouldn't want to do that sort of just carte blanche without being a little bit more precise about it. I could bring it to the next time we get together.
I also think that, and just kind of my thought on it is that we typically haven't had decorum problems at the Charter Commission. And we've had controversial things come to the Charter Commission, and and I think there have been people who felt like they were on the winning side of a controversial thing, and there were people who felt like they were not on the winning side of a controversial thing, but we've never really had the problem with this group of kind of getting past focusing on the question and getting into focusing on the person. And my personal preference would be, I think we've added a little bit more here to that, but maybe try it out and see if it ends up working. I just making this a lot longer without having some examples where we're saying, here's the kind of things that we're trying to prevent. Just see, I prefer to kind of wait until something happens. So John, go ahead.
Echoing it and what you said, Chair Peterson, when we did the ranked choice voting here a few years back, that's probably as a contentious an issue as we've seen in quite a while. And we saw we had no issues, not only between members, but we have the luxury of being a rather unknown commission compared to some of the commissions in the city. And so that maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but it does reduce the opportunity or the likelihood of having more contention.
Mayor members also Chair and gosh, you got me all mixed up there. I'll also say that there are certainly times where you're debating very, very detailed elements to the language. We've certainly been a part of that. But oftentimes there's a bit of a warm up to the act of having a detailed discussion, and that you have to sort of take action to receive it and start the clock and do some of those sort of ministerial functions in the beginning. And I think that that's helpful for everybody because it has the provides the opportunity to lay out the process. And in my experience, a lot of the frustration and anger come from a place where people are confused about when they get a chance to participate and how they get to participate. And so Adrian and I work very hard to lay all that out in the public documents to say, this is when this is happening and this is when this is happening and here is the timeline. And so I think that we make it very clear to people when and how they can participate. And hopefully that gives people the feeling that they will have a chance to be heard and that everybody's opinions will be received in due course. Now.
Yeah. Anybody else? I did have one thing, and it's in the first block of text on the top of page 28, and it's in the second to last line actually starting in the third to last line where it says the presiding officers and members are role models. Then there's a list. It says for residents, business people. And I was thinking often there should read other.
Yes, I think it should too.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that in.
Thank you. Yes, that's a typo.
Okay. Anybody else got anything on page 28 that they want to bring up? Not seeing hands waving around, so I think we're up here for the grand finale of page 29, which updates the version of Robert's Rules of Order. For those of you who are new, we use a very simple version of Robert's Rules of Order where you make motions and vote on them, and that's about it. Not 600 pages worth of Robert's Rules of Order. So anybody have anything on this page that they want to talk about? Okay, John.
Chairman Pearson, my only question would be, if we ever had one of those more contentious, or for lack of a better word, discussions. Who is the criteria?
Shared members, in my experience, everyone in the room turns and looks at me. So
Oh, really?
I don't know that I'm the parliamentarian with a capital P, but in my experience, I'm the one carrying the book. And so
Does it need to be in here? It
sometimes,
seems like a silly thing.
sometimes the rules specifically say a person is, sometimes the clerk, sometimes it's the city clerk. I see it in rules sometimes and sometimes not.
So practically speaking, if I was on a commission that typically in a small group like this, that's fairly informal, the chair ultimately would rule on some matter related to parliamentary procedure. And the members of the commission have the right to appeal that. And if that sort of motion, if you disagree with what the chair decided on something like that, is basically a motion that has priority and has to be decided immediately. And so if the advice of the attorney was something and the commission disagreed with that, the commission could immediately say, we want to vote to kind of change that outcome if they disagreed with that outcome strongly enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that would end up going down.
I just didn't know if we needed any additional language.
I don't think so. I think Robert Rules of Order allow for that,
Okay.
that sort of appeal of the decision of the chair to occur. So, yeah.
Chair and members, I'll offer that when things get complicated parliamentarily speaking, it's my preference to tell people what the rules are before we start. So for example, if there is a need to reconsider something, before we do that, I usually know that it's probably going to happen, or I'm prepared to talk about it regardless. And I'll tell everybody what the rules are. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and it's not debatable, or it is debatable. It requires a majority or a supermajority, so that everybody knows what the rules are, so that we can effectively carry out the business.
So like a fairly common example of that is that you have something that comes that maybe you have to pick A or B, that the commission has to pick A or B. Somebody makes a motion to say, I want to do A, and that gets voted down. Okay. You might think, well, you got to do A or B. If you vote down A, that means that B is adopted there. But historically, that's not true. That's not true. Somebody actually has to say, we want to do B, and we have to vote on that and affirmatively do it.
So again, we went through this
Yeah, we did that.
with the ranked choice voting, where we had one vote that didn't pass, followed by the opposing vote that didn't pass. And ultimately, we had to kick it back to city council for them to, because we couldn't or didn't want to pass one motion for or one motion against. And at the time, I thought, well, it was, we had to be careful. Chairman Thorson at the time did a very good job of walking us through with the help of whoever else was chiming in. We got through that somehow, but it was probably the most trickiest thing that we've done for a while since I've been on.
Chair, I will offer that is one of the trickiest things, and that things don't pass by default, right? They pass by affirmative vote. And sometimes people that are newer to parliamentary procedure it's helpful to have that explained.
Anything else here? Okay, well, I didn't write down any changes.
Other than other.
Other than, that's right, other than the word other. And that's small enough that if it's the sense of the group tonight, we could certainly vote to adopt this with that change and be done with this.
So moved.
I heard a motion. Stanley? Second from Nikki Kohler. Any discussion?
You did.
Did she second too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any discussion? So it's as written with the one word change. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Carries unanimously.
Okay.
There we go, 5.1. Okay, we will move on through here. Next agenda item is kind of a sad item, and this is just an item Honoring Commission Member Jay Taylor, who passed away recently on March 18th. Jay was a longtime member of the Charter Commission, and if you saw Jay's obituary in the paper, you saw all of the different things that he was involved in. He was involved in the Aquatennial, in the Boy Scouts, and his college fraternity. He was really involved in the Knights of Columbus. He was the chair of the Parish Council at St. Ed's. Really a person who liked volunteering and liked being involved in things, and was a super engaged member of the commission. And I used to see him because he lived in the same apartment building that my parents live in West Bloomington. And so I would be tootling through the building and see Jay oftentimes roaming around the building. He was a super friendly guy, a fun person to be around. And I think those of us who knew him really well are, we're going to miss him. So we just wanted to recognize Jay during the meeting. So, yeah. Good. Okay, we'll move on then to item 8.1, approving the draft report. Yes.
This is the draft report includes appointing recording secretaries and so on, which we haven't done yet. Am I missing something?
Correct.
It's the weird order that the agenda operates in. So, Commissioner Thorson, I would entertain a motion to move item 8.1 after 10.1.
So moved.
There's a second to move 8.1 after 10.1. As a second, so moved by Mark, seconded by Jamil to move 8.1 for 10.1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Okay, we'll go to election of officers. We'll start by appointing a recording secretary. Do I hear a motion to appoint Adrian as the secretary?
So moved.
Who was that? It was Cynthia Hunt. Is there a second? Second. Okay, seconded Kathy Gustafson. So moved by Hunt, by Kathy Gustafson to appoint Adrian as the recording secretary. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, can go on your resume.
Oh, no resume, Doc.
We're allowed to do that. You can't.
I was like, wait a minute.
Next up, we're appointing an attorney for a commission. This is absolutely not something that can go on a resume. And so do I hear a motion appointing someone to be the attorney? Was that Hussein? And are you appointing Melissa as the? Melissa, okay. Is there a second? Second. Okay, and I do want to say here, although while I would say that for the people who've been involved for a long time, that we're very satisfied with the representation that Melissa provides us, we have the discretion to hire anybody we want as the attorney for the Charter Commission. It's worked well to have Melissa do that because A, she has a lot of expertise in this space, and B, she knows a lot about how the city works. You can see that she brings a lot of history to the table, and I really can't think of anybody else who would have that combination of things to come here. So I think we've been satisfied with her representation. So with that, there's a motion and a second.
Sorry, who seconded
the second? It was Jamil who seconded it. To appoint Melissa as the attorney for the Charter Commission. Any discussion? None. We'll come to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And you can't put it on your resume. Okay.
Well, I will say that if I have a conflict, my rules of ethics require that I farm it out, so I will.
Okay. Next up, we have the opportunity to appoint a chair. And so is there anybody who would like to make a motion regarding appointing?
I would, go ahead, Mark.
I nominate Steve Peterson.
Assuming you say yes.
Moved by Mark Thorson and seconded by Rod Axtell. So this isn't an appointment of a person in this kind of role. So if there's somebody else who wanted to step forward, you could certainly throw your name in the hat at this point. Otherwise, we'll move ahead with the vote. All those in favor of appointing Steve Peterson to be the chair of the commission, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carried unanimously. And next up is the vice chair.
Chair, just as a reminder, those that don't remember reading, at the last meeting, there was a vice chair elected because we had a vacancy in the position. And so the current vice chair, and I'm mentioning this because she has an excused absence tonight, is Commissioner Melby.
Yeah. Do I hear a motion to appoint a vice chair?
Make a motion.
Right.
I'll make a motion to appoint Commissioner Melby.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, moved by Rod Extel and seconded by John Stanley to appoint Melby as the vice chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next up is setting the date for regularly scheduled Charter Commission meeting. And just for those of you who are new, just to kind of frame this up, we've been having these review meetings to review the charter, and I think we agreed we were going to do on the order of like 3 a year. Those meetings under the rules of procedure are special meetings, which means that they're not kind of scheduled as part of our annual meeting on a meeting schedule. We kind of collaborate on coming up with a meeting date, and then we schedule a special meeting for that. So you can expect us to come around and collect dates for a couple meetings between now and this May 1st, 2025 regular meeting. If a reason that we might start having a regular meeting schedule is like let's say we were brand new as a charter commission and we were actually writing the charter and we were meeting every 2 weeks or every month, that would make sense to have a regular schedule. But because the charter is stable, it doesn't really make sense for us to have a meeting scheduled like that in advance. So with that, do I hear a motion regarding setting the date of the next charter commission meeting?
May 1st. I would,
1st, 2025.
I would suggest May 1st,
Okay, John, do I hear a second?
2025.
Yes, 2025. Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, Jamil seconded. So it's been moved and seconded that the next meeting of the Charter Commission, next regular meeting and the annual meeting be on Thursday, May 1st, 2025. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll come to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion. Great. So next up, we're back at item 1, which is approving draft. So let's zoom backwards in the packet. Page 32, which is the report.
Here, just as a little bit of background, people might be wondering why we are doing this. It's because it has to be submitted annually to the
Chief Judge.
to the chief judge, who appoints each of you. And so we have an obligation to do it. It's, as you see, a sort of a recitation of what happened. And it's odd because we have to prepare it in advance and optimistically put some stuff in there. So. And then Adrian obviously edits it as needed.
And if there was a motion on this, it would be with changes to the attendance in the, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 6th paragraph to reflect the attendance that was taken at the beginning of the meeting. So if there's no discussion, a motion would be in order. Okay, it will move by Commissioner Thorson, second by Commissioner Stanley to approve the annual report with the change that I just discussed. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll come to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Next up is adjournment.
Before we
Go
adjourn,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt, and I meant to mention this before we did the adjournment. So I know that we're likely going to meet at special meetings to review the charter in the beginning of next year. There is a possibility that we might need to get together before then, and we obviously will let you know when we know. But it's possible, and I also wanted to let you know that for those of you that haven't heard, the structure of the city departments has been reorganized. It's in the process of being reorganized. And our charter talks about some positions. And so it's possible that when the reorganization is established, that there might need to be some charter amendments, some small tweaking of minor things based on my read of it so far. Obviously, we'll bring that to you. We thought about bringing it tonight. Ultimately, we decided to let a little bit more time pass so that we won't have to take multiple actions to amend the charter. And as we know more, we'll be in communication about that, but it's possible. And so for those of you that haven't signed up with the Everbridge system so that you get notified, please contact Adrian before you leave tonight to get all that going. And then that will send you an alert to let you know that we need to have a meeting or where Adrian's polling you for dates or what have you. So we'll see. But if we receive something that needs to go on the ballot or something like that, then we, that quick time clock starts.
Just to be clear, because the city may be changing its structure, we may have to change our charter if and when it reflects to some of these positions that will no longer be around.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I blended the topics a little bit. There's an election coming up and sometimes people want to put things on the ballot. So if that comes to pass, then we'll have to have a special meeting. There's also a reorganization of the structure of the city happening right now, and there might need to be some charter adjustments as well. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. If we end up having to have a special meeting related to the ballot, we might throw that reorganization stuff on there as well. Just to be
Thank you.
mindful of everyone's time.
Okay. Let's do the meeting.
Move we adjourn.
Okay, there's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Okay, motion's not debatable. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same. All opposed? The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Mike,